What if the most important clue in Project Hail Mary was hidden inside the very first thing you hear? And not the first thing you saw, the first thing you hear. A man wakes up in a room he doesn't recognize, he doesn't know his name, he doesn't know where he is, he doesn't know what year it is, and he looks at his hands like they belongs to a stranger. And here's what's nobody noticed. And the opening scene, that's not just a storytelling device to catch you up on the plot. That's the entire philosophy of the movie and coded in 30 seconds of confusion. Because Project Hail Mary isn't really a story about saving the earth, it's about story about what it means to be a human. When you have forgotten you are a human at all, stay with me because by the end of this video, you are going to rewatch the opening scene in your head and it is going to hit completely differently. Let's go. And okay, so here's the surface level of story for everyone who needs the 30-second version. Dr. Ryland Grace wakes up alone on a spaceship. Two dead crewmates besides him, no memory of who he is and why he is there. Slowly the memories come back, and what's come back is terrifying. The sun is dying, not if a 5 billion years right now. A microscopic organism called Astrophage is literally eating the sun's energy, and not just our sun, every star in the galaxy except one, Tosity. So humanity launched one disparate mission, send a ship towards Tosity, find out why that star is immune, bring back the answer, save 8 billion people. And they sent this guy, a junior high school teacher, who at one point actively refused to be a part of a mission. Now most people watch what's set up to say. Cool sci-fi movie, they follow the plot, they enjoy the ride. But here's what nobody stopped to ask. Why did the greatest minds of the and the earth under the most extreme pressure in human history choose a man who said no? The question right here. And that is the hidden engine running under earth. That's entire movie, because the answer doesn't just explain the plot, it explains every single character decision, every flashback, every emotional beat right up to the end that broke the internet. Let's start pull the thread. And here comes here Ryland Grace. Think about the name for a second. Not Ryland Strong, not Ryland Brave, Ryland Grace. Grace as in unearned favor, a gift you didn't deserve and didn't ask for. In the theology, grace is when someone good happens to you because on your merit, but in spite of your flaws. This man was chosen for the mission not because he was the best, because he was chosen because he had accidentally made the single most important scientific discovery that made the whole mission possible. He stumbled into a greatness that is the literally definition of grace. And the movie never once called attention to this. It just puts in his name and lets you miss it. Clue number two, the two dead crewmates. When Grace wakes up, the first thing he discovers is that his two crewmates were dead. And ship AI calls them Yo and Yukina, one Chinese, one Russian. Now, here, what actually means? The Hail Mary mission was funded by the entire world. Every nation contributed. The crew was deliberately chosen to represent geopolitical unity. China, Russia, and the America. Three largest nuclear powers, the three countries most likely to go to war with each other if civilization started collapsing. But those who died in their sleep during the journey. So when Grace wakes up, America is the only one left. Is that an accident, or it is a quite uncomfortable commentary on who actually ends up carrying the weight when the world's back in against the wall? I let you sit with that one. Clue number three, the memory structure is the something that filmmakers did that possible. Most people process it as a normal storytelling technique, but it's actually a psychological portrait of trauma. Grace didn't lose his memories randomly, they come back in a very specific order. First, the scientific memories return. How do it to a man? How to analyze the data, the technical skills. Then, much later and much more painful, the emotional memories return. Why he resisted, what he was afraid of, what he sacrificed. That's not a random. That's exactly how dislocative amnesia actually works in trauma survivor. Director is very brilliant. The brain protects the functional self first. The emotional self gets buried deeper because that's the part that hurts. The screenwriter built a medically accurate psychological trauma portrait into a structure of how the story is told. And the most people just thought the flashbacks were for exposition. But this changes everything because it means every time Grace remembers something new. You are not just watching a plot reveal. You are watching a man slowly unfreezing emotionally. And the moment he fully remembers who he is, that's the moment the movie real climax begins. And did you observe that? Now, let's talk about the moment this movie goes for great legendary. Rocky. Half thought the story, Gracie detects another ship near Curiosity. He is terrified. He is alone in a space, millions of miles from home, and there is an alien spacecraft right next to him. And that alien, Rocky, turns out to be the most important character in the movie. But here's what nobody caught about how the relationship is written. Rocky is from a civilization that communicates through music, through vibration, through sound waves. He literally cannot communicate with Grace using language. So they have to build one from a scratch together. Now think about what actually means thematically. And Rocky and the Grace have nothing in common. Different biology, different planets, different evolutionary paths. Rocky has four arms and looks like what would happen if a spider and a rock had a baby. Think deep. Spider and rock had a baby. And yet, within a days of meeting, they are laughing to each other. Rocky makes jokes. Grace makes jokes back. They tease each other. They eat together in their own separate section of a ship because their atmosphere are toxic to each other, but together. And here's the line that hit me like a freight train. At one point, Grace realizes that Rocky traveled farther from home than he did. The Rocky's home planet is not the outsider of the Curiosity. The Rocky is just as alone in space as Grace is. They are the same person. That's the secret the movie hides in plain sight. Rocky and Grace are narrative mirrors of each other. Both scientists, both sent on disparate missions by their civilization, both terrified, both lonely, both accidentally funny. The movie is asking you what makes someone your friend, and the answer is gives you a radical, not shared language, not shared biology, not shared history, shared purpose, shared curiosity, shared humor in the face of impossible odds. And if that's true, then every wall we build between ourselves, down here and the earth, every reason we gave for why we can't connect with that person, that country, that culture is complete and totally bullshit. The movie hid an anti-tribalism manifesto inside a buddy comedy with a space spider. The most nobody called it out. And let's talk about who Ryland Grace actually is. Because the movie gives you all the pieces, but it never assembles them for you. Grace is his pre-mission flashbacks. He's a man who stopped believing in big ideas. He started as a researcher with a radical theory that life could exist in extreme conditions. He published it. He got destroyed by the academic community, mocked, professionally humiliated. So he retreated. He became a middle school teacher, safe, contained, no more big swings. Here's the psychological truth the movie is encoding in the backstory. Grace isn't yet humble, he's a wounded. There is a massive difference. Humble people don't need approval, wounded people crave it. And the flinch away from the situations where they might not get. And then Eva Stark, the ruthless, brilliant, borderline terrifying project director who is running the Hail Mary mission, shows up and tells him his theory was right. Astrophage is exactly what he said life in extreme conditions would look like. He was right the whole time, and they laughed at him at the time. And this is masterclass in character writing. Strat does not confront him about that. She doesn't say, "We are sorry." She says, essentially, "Great. Now get on the ship." Because the machine doesn't have room for Grace to heal. It doesn't have room for him to recognize. It just need him to function. That's it. And here's the dark psychology hidden in the dynamic. Grace spends the entire Earth-based portion of the story being emotionally manipulated by Strat. She controls his diet, his location, his access to his own research. She essentially removes his autonomy, and he lets her because deep down he believes the mission matters more than he does. And it's come to the portion that's not heroism. That's a trauma response. The man who saves humanity is doing it partly because at same level he doesn't fully value himself. And then he meets Rocky. He values him completely, immediately, and without a condition. That is why wonder the Grace emotional breakthrough doesn't comes from the science. It's come from the friendship. Rocky doesn't know Grace history. Rocky doesn't know he was mocked or humiliated or wounded. Rocky just sees. Here is a being that is curious and brave and a funny and a trying his best and decides this one is my friend. That's the emotional center of the entire movie. And it was hiding inside the character psychology the whole time. And it's come to the man. All right, he here's where we go deep. At the end of the story, and I'm going to talk about this carefully because this is where the whole movie crazes, right? Crystallizes. Grace has a choice. He can take the Astrophage cure back to Earth. He can save humanity. He can go home. Or he can stay near City, follow Rocky back to Rocky's home planet, and live out the rest of his life as a normal, only human being in a civilization of spider crab aliens. And he chooses to stay. Now, on the surface, people say it's a sacrifice. He gives up his homecoming to make sure Rocky gets back safely. But here's what I think the movie is actually saying, and this is the theory that nobody is willing to say out loud. Grace doesn't go home because Earth is not his home anymore. Thinks about everything that happened to him. He is Sears onto the mission. He was stripped out of his autonomy. The people who sent him gave him a one way ticket and said goodbye. Goodbye. You're probably going to die. That's for saying us. And his home was a planet where he was mocked for being right, manipulated into a suicide mission, and sent to die alone. But and Rocky's world is a place where the first being he met, a creature of completely different biology from a completely different star, treated him with immediate respect and a warmth. Grace doesn't sacrifice his homecoming. He chooses his home. And here's the philosophy buried under all of this. The movie title is Project Hail Mary. A Hail Mary in American football is a last second desperate throw with almost no chance of success. You do it when you have nothing left to lose. But in Catholic tradition, and Andy Ware knew exactly what he was doing here. A Hail Mary is also a prayer to figure who is asked to intercede for us, not because we deserve it, but because we are desperate and she is merciful. Who is Hail Mary figure in the story? It's not Grace. He is the one being sent. It's Rocky. Rocky, an alien, shows up in uninvented and becomes the reason the mission succeeds. No technology, no human ingenuity alone. An act of mercy from a creature that owned humanity nothing. The movie is saying the thing that saves us won't come from within us. It will come from outside us. From the thing we didn't expect, from the connection we almost didn't make. And if you want to go one layer deeper, Grace's decision to stay is also the movie's final answer to its central question. Why do we do any of this? Not for legacy, not for recognition, not even for survival. We do it for the person standing next to us right now. That's it. That's the whole movie. Hidden in the ending, the locked and like a sacrifice. But so here's where I want to leave you. Project Hail Mary is being called one of the greatest scientific fiction stories ever told. And on the surface, it's look like a story about a man who saved the world. But now, you know what's actually underneath? It's a story about a wounded man who stopped believing in himself, being seen by a spider from another star, and finally, for the first time, believing he was worth something. And the world got saved as a side effect. Now, here's the question I need you to answer in your comments because this is going to a Star War down there, and I am here for it. Grace had a choice to go to home to Earth and be celebrated as a man who saved 8 billion people or stay in an alien civilization with the one being who ever truly saw him. He chooses Rocky's world. Was that the right choice? Was it selfish? Was it selfish? Was it? And I genuinely want to know what you think. Was it is the bravest thing in a human being has ever done in a fiction? Or did Grace just give up on humanity because humanity gave up on him first? First, drop your answer below because I have read every theory on this and I still don't have a definite answer. And if the video cracked something open for you that you didn't see before, share it with someone who watched the movie and throw them understood it because they didn't. None of us did. Not until now. Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm waiting for your comment.